So Jason and I are going to give you an update on the state of Jupyter from the perspective of the Executive Council. And I get the first fun slides on recent highlights, things that have been happening in the community and with Jupyter software. Number one, adoption is still growing. So last year, GitHub came out with our Octoverse report in October, and it showed that in new repos, there was 1.5 million notebooks, at least one notebooks in those repos. Well, guess what? And I wish there was somebody from GitHub here. We'd like to thank you for coming out with this year's report. Because now there are 2.4 million notebooks in repos, a 75% increase.
Eric, we're going to need a bigger slide next year.
Yeah, if that chart keeps going up. And as they point out, notebooks are now a mature tool for experimentation. This again just reinforces what Brian told us. So today, there are 169 organizations represented attending JupyterCon. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing how huge the user, contributor, enthusiast community is. This is just a subset, about half of the organizations represented. Jupyter truly is a multi-stakeholder project. Last year in November, about literally 1 year from today, Project Jupyter moved over to the Linux Foundation charities, the LF charities, and became a directed fund under that. To remind you, the Project Jupyter structure is the Executive Council, folks like myself, Jason, and others, some working groups, and then a Software Steering Council that has representation by the software subprojects and standing committees. When the Jupyter Foundation was formed, it was established under the Linux Foundation with its own governing board, with corporate sponsorship to provide resources to the community. And members, all the members of the Executive Council also serve on the Executive Council, or on the governing board. Again, I'm queuing stuff up for the future. So what is the Jupyter Foundation? The Jupyter Foundation is to provide, its mission is to provide resources for the benefit of Jupyter, so that Jupyter can continue to grow and evolve with all the changing landscape we're seeing with AI, collaborative and pervasive computing, et cetera. And in the past year, the governing board has agreed with two funding priorities: to grow contributor capacity and to improve the reliability, security, and consistency of Jupyter software. And we would like to thank the members of the Jupyter Foundation. Here are the premier members, the general members, and the associate members, some of whom are sponsors of JupyterCon, in addition to our latest general member who just signed today. So thank you to Sphinx. And we have been as active as we can be, given that we're a multi-hutted beast, like every board. We recently announced in a blog post 7 funded community proposals around testing, build systems, accessibility, contributor community, code quality, documentation, and prototyping. This is all funded by the foundation. We also are about to announce, or we are announcing now, that we have funded 4 community workshops targeting education, security, road mapping activities, and extensible AI. So we look forward to getting people together again to focus on these areas, again, funded by the foundation. In the landscape of the subprojects, and so subprojects are the organizational structure that people agree and plan on work activities, landing code, et cetera, which may represent several efforts or specific software packages. One of the activities that you might have learned about in a talk yesterday or in a meeting yesterday is Jupyter Health, focused on how do we support interactive computing to enable people's health analytics and precision medicine and other activities. On the front-end space, there was an agreement to take Jupyter Lab and Jupyter Notebook and combine into a single front-end project to share code, because the contributor base had a strong amount of overlap and the dependency in the software had a strong amount of overlap. So they've merged into a single sub-project. And we added Jupyter Book, which Brian mentioned as well. So this brings Mist into the Jupyter community. Finally, my last slide in terms of highlights, Jupyter and AI. In that same Octoverse report, which I recommend that people go read, when they looked at what tools people were using for doing AI research and exploration, they looked at like, oh, TypeScript, JavaScript, Python. Jupyter itself, though not a programming language, stood out so much that they put it onto the metrics. This is the go-to exploratory environment for AI. We are it. So very excited about this, and this all dovetails into all the activities that Brian mentioned And if you go and you look at the pull requests and other activities where they put a lot of effort recently into taking all of the various AI efforts and splitting them into individual packages that dovetail into a longer term plan. Really appreciate that. Thank you to David Cui and others that work in that area. So with that, now that I've done the fun slides, Jason?
This is the even more fun part. Where do we go from here? Not a blank screen.
Oh,
The future is available, and we can write our own future
the future
here.
is conservative in the sense of power. I apologize.
There we go. Yes, goals for 2026.
So that means I hit 10 minutes exactly.
Excellent. Where do we go from here in 2026 and beyond? Well, as Rick said, the user base is growing exponentially here if you look at the graph. And you can see that in the conference here today and yesterday. We've had talks from inner city high schools using Jupyter to some of the largest research and top universities in the world. We've had talks from some of the smallest one-person companies to some of the largest companies in the world. We've had talks about how Jupyter is blessing lives all around the planet. I would venture to say that if you look in the planet and find data in some crevice in the planet, look nearby, and you'll either find a spreadsheet or you'll find a Jupyter notebook. But the challenge here is, as with many open source projects and many things that experience exponential growth, is that the contributor base remains relatively constant here. This is a graph that shows for some of the popular repos in Jupyter, the number of code contributors each year that either are returning from a previous year or are new for that particular year. And you can see on the left-hand axis, the scale is in hundreds, so we're not talking small numbers here. But the contributor growth hasn't kept up with the user growth. And so that's one of our challenges for the future here is how do we grow the contributor capacity in Jupyter? I mean, we'd like to see this graph next year look something like this. This is only part of the story, though. This is people actually submitting pull requests on GitHub. Growing the contributor capacity is a much bigger story than this. It's making the existing contributors more effective using, for example, AI tooling, or helping existing contributors manage the influx of needs and issues and everything that arise. This is also inviting new contributors, making it easier for new contributors to onboard. It's increasing the documentation, tutorials, making it a more friendly place for people to come into the community. There's so much in growing the contributor capacity. We're excited to tackle this problem. It's also understanding what metrics we want to track. And this is a community conversation that needs to happen. What parts are we going to really focus on in growing contributor capacity? Another point that you've seen from what Rick was saying is we have this new Jupyter Foundation. This is an amazing development in the Jupyter community. For years, we've had a large contributor base, but we've struggled to engage with organizations at an organizational level and to tap into the resources that organizations were knocking down our door and begging to give us. We have the Jupyter Foundation now. It's a vessel for organizations to come to the community, to contribute resources, and even more holistically be a part of the community. But for this last year, while we set things up, the Executive Council has largely been the sole interface between Project Jupyter and the Jupyter Foundation. Now, there's a ton of energy both in Project Jupyter and a ton of energy in the Jupyter Foundation. And you know what happens when you have a fuse between two sources of a ton of energy? It quickly is not very sustainable. So what we'd like to see and help and assist is that the Jupyter Foundation really becomes a part of the Jupyter community. Now, obviously, they're contributing resources, and we're very grateful for that. That's helping sustain some of the efforts that Rick mentioned, the first round of community proposals. But even more holistically, the Jupyter Foundation members have extremely talented engineers. If you watched Zach's talk the other day about how to include people from corporations or other organizations in the Jupyter community, there's a lot of work to be done to invite these collaborators into the community. And there's all sorts of other ways that they can be fully members of the Jupyter community. So we'd like to see and assist, and one of our challenges is helping the Jupyter Foundation members, one, grow, and two, be really a part of the community.
I'm just making sure it doesn't go out on you again.
Oh, okay, thanks. Another thing that we want to work on is as Rick said, the amazing thing about Jupyter is that it's a wonderful multi-stakeholder organization. Early on, the decision was made to explicitly make Project Jupyter not a company or something like that, but a neutral playing ground for many, many stakeholders. We mentioned 169 organizations just here at this conference. If you look at the number of organizations over the history of Jupyter, we're talking hundreds to thousands of organizations that have contributed to Jupyter. And of course, thousands to tens of thousands of individuals. But harnessing that energy and directing and focusing that energy is a tough challenge. We have the organizational structure in place. We've spent a long time over the last few years setting up an organizational structure that can handle growth and the capacity that we need to grow in the future. We've got the leadership bodies on the left. We've got the sub-project bodies in the middle here. We've got the Jupyter Foundation here. And unlocking the power of collaboration between these bodies is the challenge for the coming year. There's tons of work being done inside of each sub-project. There's a lot of latent energy that needs to be unlocked in collaboration between the sub-project. We just mentioned having the Jupyter Foundation be full members of the Jupyter community. There's an amazing potential here. And the key is we want to remain a neutral multi-stakeholder organization. That's why Jupyter has lasted 20 years and why it will last another 20 years. Many people are bringing their ideas and energy to the project, and our challenge, the wonderful challenge, the best challenge you can have is tapping into the energy that's available and focusing that collaboration energy in Project Jupyter. So, what can you do? How can you help the community bless the lives of the entire planet? Well, here's 10 ways you can help in the Jupyter community, help grow the Jupyter community. Raise your hand if you've attended a JupyterCon. Congratulations. You all are contributing members of our community. Raise your hand if you've given a talk. This is amazing. I love being among all these amazing contributors. Attending a Jupyter community meeting. Every week we have meetings. They're on the Jupyter calendar. Come and join us. Watch Zach's talk about how to come into the community and really develop the connections that you need. Serve on a Jupyter Council or working group. Right now, the Executive Council is in the nomination period for elections for the Executive Council for the next 2 years. There's 3 spots that are open on the Executive Council. Nominate yourself. If you're on a Jupyter Council, you have to be on a Jupyter Council to be nominated, but nominate yourself if you're on a Jupyter Council. Nominate your best friend or your worst enemy, depending on how much work you think there is involved, or serve on a working group. There's many working groups: the community building working group, the documentation working group, the security council, etc. There's many places to serve that are not necessarily just contributing code. Join the Jupyter Foundation. Meredith, are you still in the room? I think Meredith walked out to already have a conversation with somebody about joining the Jupyter Foundation. Start the conversation in your organization. What can we do to support Jupyter from an organization standpoint while we're holistically also helping out in the individual standpoint? So Meredith Roach is the right person to talk to. She's out here in the conference talking to people. Submit or respond to a GitHub issue. Help alleviate the load of the current maintainers by picking up some of the load of helping somebody else that's having a problem. Or if you notice a problem, submit a well-thought-out issue. Tell the person next to you how you're using Jupyter. There's nothing I love better than hearing how Jupyter is helping vehicles on other planets explore space, how Jupyter's curing cancer, how Jupyter's curing climate change, all sorts of different things. Tell the person next to you how you're using Jupyter. And maybe ask them what challenges they have or share how you overcame challenges. We have so many things to do that the computer can't even handle it. Write a blog post about Jupyter. Tell the world about how you're using Jupyter. Promote blog posts on social media about Jupyter. That one paragraph in the docs that you read that's kind of confusing, but you finally figured it out after a day? Go back and rewrite that paragraph for the next person that comes along. Try a pre-release. Right now, Jupyter 4.5, I think, Jupyter Lab 4.5 has a pre-release out. We're looking for people to beta test it. And it's easy to download a pre-release and try it out. Get in on the scoop of what's new, et cetera. If you're a data scientist here, help us analyze this community data. We mentioned we really want to grow the contributor capacity. There's tons of data out there about what the current health is. help us gain insights about what we need to do, what we can focus on in developing community health. These are just 10 ways that came off the top of our heads. There's many, many other ways for you to contribute to the Jupyter community and thereby bless the millions, tens of millions of people using Jupyter, blessing the entire human race on planet Earth through the insights that they derive. We just want to say thank you. This is an amazing community to be a part of. Thank you to the organizers of this particular conference and the LF staff and the sponsors and the attendees and the speakers. But in general, thank you so much for being such a wonderful community to bless all the world.